Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the US dollar and the current financial system. We are starting to kind of see big shifts happening around this area, and I have been reporting on this for a while, what we are most likely going to see next. This was the first article that I seen get posted on a mainstream media website, which is yahoo.com. And we see, could China's yuan replace the US dollar as the world's dominant currency? Here's how the Asian nation's trade supremacy is quickly boosting its reserve status. And this goes to talk about like how China has a GDP of 17.7 trillion, which is second only to the United States, and it's also the third largest trading nation in the world behind only the U.S. and the EU. The interesting thing about this is that they do also mention the market share of the U.S. dollar. It's 87% around a trade and stuff like that. The issue here is that we are starting to see a lot of these major nations moving away from the U.S. dollar. One of the biggest, reports that I've been talking about is what the BRICS are doing with gold and, really kind of moving away from the U.S. dollar. And this does talk about how they could possibly really achieve reserve currency status and really kind of replace the US dollar. Now, one thing that I will say is that I'm not going to go in depth on like how do currencies achieve reserve currency standard. I've talked about how a reserve currency works in the past. If you guys do want to read more about this, you guys are more than welcome to go read this article yourself. But I do want to talk about China's plans. So let's talk about the fact that they have been trying to convince massive major central bankers around the world to utilize the Chinese yuan. Now, back in July, we did see the People's Bank of China announce a collaboration with 5 nations and the Bank for International Settlements to achieve this. China, along with Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Chile, would each contribute 15 billion yuan, about $2.2 billion, to the renminbi liquidity arrangement. And this is very interesting because meanwhile, the Chinese yuan has already become a de facto reserve currency in Russia. Russian leadership turned to China after facing sanctions from the West due to its invasion of Ukraine earlier this year. Now, 17% of Russia's foreign reserves are denominated in yuan. The yuan is also the third most demanded currency on the Moscow exchange. As these partnerships become stronger, the yuan status as a reserve currency could be further entrenched. Now, the interesting thing about this is that we're actually kind of seeing this being pushed greatly. One of the biggest ones that I just want to go back to is Egypt. So on December 10th, Gold Telegraph posted about Egypt. Now, I know that you're probably like, what are you even talking about? What's going on with this? We'll talk about it here in a second. Currently, there is a gold rush in Egypt. Egyptians are hoarding as much gold as they can, trying to protect their savings as their national currency continues to lose value against foreign currencies. Now, this wouldn't be that interesting to me if we didn't already see, going back to October 23rd, breaking news, Egypt to develop a new currency indicator to wean people off the US dollar. The trend continues. The indicator would be based on a basket of several currencies and possibly gold. And what are we doing here? Egyptians are now hoarding us a ton of gold. And over here, going back to August 30th. Now, this was the big one, right? Egypt will issue yuan-denominated bonds worth $500 million and has postponed the issuance of its dollar bonds due to its high interest rates. There are reports of Egypt approaching BRICS about an official membership as well. You don't need that much vision to see the next major move. And yes, we are starting to see BRICS alliances continue to grow and continue to expand out. By the way, Molly Elmore 22 posted this back on August 17th, talking about the BRICS and how they are growing and they are becoming an emerging massive ecosystem of giants. And their major plan is to really do business outside of the US-based system. They wanted to move away from what the US was doing. They were utilizing SWIFT as well as the US dollar as a financial weapon. So they moved away from it. And now we're starting to see a lot of things unfold, especially with Egypt. I mean, you could really kind of piece together the entire puzzle and see the bigger picture here on what's happening. But also, as we look at China, we do see this week, we saw China officially increase its gold holdings for the first time since 2019. And the president said they would work to buy oil and gas in yuan at the Gulf Summit. The times are changing. Yes, gold is playing a significant role in this change. And remember the report that I shared with you guys recently around gold and central banks buying gold. Check out the Q3 2022 compared to all other major quarters going all the way back to 2010. That's right, the largest amount of gold purchases among central banks. No big surprise there. And also, we have a currency debasement cycle down here around gold as well. Here you guys have the U.S. Commodity Price Index with major inflation peaks. And you can see everything happening around gold. It goes back in time on a few things around the Cold War, World War I, the U.S. Civil War, and even the War of 1812. And it's very interesting to see these charts because, you know, gold could very well look very interesting going forward, especially as we do see a lot of central banks massively accumulating gold, and a lot of people do believe that this is to be the backing behind CBDCs that are issued out on the DLTs, which could very well be the case. We also do see over here, we are starting to see central banks limit cash withdrawals. I just reported on this in a video recently. I wanted to include it in this video because of what we are starting to see around central banks. But limit cash withdrawals as they work on their own digital currencies while taking huge losses as they rapidly accumulate gold. Yes, this is the big plan. I've been focused on this for a while. And just recently, one of the biggest reports that I've posted on this channel was Saudi Arabia's move away from the US dollar. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, you have the petrodollar deal. The petrodollar deal will be the... I really do think that that's the thing that sets the US dollar into a catastrophic move. Because this has been a deal that has been a backing behind the US dollar for a very, very long time. And shout out to Black Swan Capitalists over on Twitter, but we do see a move by Saudi Arabia to ditch the dollar would resonate well with non-OPEC oil producers such as Russia, China, and the European Union, which have been calling for moves to diversify global trade away from the dollar to dilute the US dollar or the US's influence over the global economy. And yes, you know, one thing that I have been mentioning quite a bit is how they could utilize DLT to outsource a lot of their payments around trade and trade financing and even like oil purchases, stuff like that. Like, it's truly insane what is happening before our eyes. And a lot of people are just not realizing what's happening because they're distracted, right? You know, a lot of people are focused on what's happening with SBF. They're sitting there waiting for the next big article to break around SBF and FTX. And although, yes, I do believe that we need to put a spotlight on the corruption, I also think that people should be paying attention to what's happening right now around the financial system. We are seeing a big move away from the US dollar, and I do also believe that the US themselves is hurting themselves even more by not allowing for crypto companies as well as cryptocurrencies to thrive within the United States. Again, this is taking steps back in time instead of moving forward on innovation as well as transformative revolutions around payments, finance, etc. Now, also, talking about this report here, here's the full-on report from Markets Insider. So we do see China wants to buy more oil from Saudi Arabia, and that could eat away at the dollar, a think tank strategist says. And here's that de-dollarization that I've been talking about for a while. It could spur this entire move to happen because, again, this will end the petrodollar deal. This will be the biggest event around the US dollar in a very, very long time. And we even do see like this could be driving up the likelihood of de-dollarization, the replacement of the dollar as a global reserve currency. And yes, a new reserve currency, in my opinion, is on the rise. Why? The time frame sits perfectly. And we even do see the Saudis have a lot to buy from China, and China has a lot to buy from Saudi Arabia. Why should they transact in a third-party currency and incur all of these exchange rate costs? Exactly. This is the big deal. Again, this is also why I say that as we look at the US dollar and as we look at cryptocurrencies like even XRP, I know that a lot of people say like, all right, well, why would they even utilize XRP? Well, it's because of the transaction cost, everything associated with it. And the funny thing is that guess what? The US can't sanction XRP. They can't sanction the XRP ledger. They can't control any of that. It's all when we look at, centralization and decentralization, like this is why decentralization matters so greatly when you are talking about, a global reserve currency. Imagine a global reserve currency where we have a decentralized reserve currency that no one can control. The major reason why we are seeing such a massive global, market collapse around the economy is because of what the US dollar, what the US did with the US dollar, while it is the reserve currency. Because this hurt other major nations that were directly tied to the US dollar. So again, when we look at that, having a decentralized reserve currency could very well be the secret to success. And last but not least, I want to take you guys a little bit back to July 13th, 2022. This got posted on Frank Giestra's website, and it's talking about why the US dollar will be replaced as the dominant global currency sooner than you think. And this does center on the BRICS nations, but it also centers on SWIFT. We don't really need to talk too much about this because this is just talking about the major moves that were happening back in March of this year, where we started to see sanctions happening from SWIFT. And that's where we started to see Russia really kind of start to move pretty quick on moving away from the US dollar. But we do see here the writing is on the wall that some form of change is imminent, and a global monetary system reset may already be underway. According to Credit Suisse, the new economic order will revolve around commodity-based currencies. These commodity-based currencies will further weaken the euro-dollar system, which will be much weaker after the war between Russia and the Ukraine ends. And how all these things evolve and their timing are beyond anyone's forecasting abilities, but something will eventually replace the US dollar as the sole dominant global reserve currency, perhaps sooner than anyone expects. I expect at the very least an alternative trading currency to emerge and compete with the dollar. This new currency would be used solely for settling trades between nations as opposed to a reserve currency that central banks normally use for diversification. Admittedly, this is sheer speculation and the eventual outcome is anyone's guess. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about is this is also my idea. The new reserve currency will be the settlement token for trades between all major nations. Why? It makes sense. It is a decentralized currency. This could very well be XRP. I'm not saying that's 100% XRP. I'm just saying that as we really kind of focus on that, it really is the idea on like how efficient is XRP as a global reserve currency. We've talked about this so many times. We've reported on it so many times. It is one of the most efficient currencies out there as a bridge currency. It was designed for that reason. So when we look at that, like this could very well be the new reserve currency. And I'm not even, talking about this in terms of like, I'm so bullish on XRP. I think XRP 100% is going to be the new reserve currency. No, I'm just saying like this could very well be a possibility. Again, it is all speculation, but it's up to anyone's guess because nobody knows what's going to happen next. And it's very interesting. It definitely is very interesting. The lifespan that he does talk about, the reserve currency lifespan here, we are basically right at the end of the US dollar's time frame on that. If we're following the time frame on lifespans of the reserve currencies, we're basically there. So it's very interesting. This article, there's a ton of information in it. I highly suggest you guys go check it out if you want to. It does talk quite a bit around, a global reserve currency and also a global reset. We also do see a gold-backed system being addressed, which I do believe that is going to most likely happen. I think that there will be a bridge currency to move a lot of that systems trading and settlements and things like that. Again, very well could be XRP settling a ton of that massive amount of money flow. We also do see discussions around a revalued gold at 7,500 an ounce, which again, it might sound outlandish, he does say, but going all the way back to 1933, which I just recently talked about, we've seen gold being revalued, and they basically robbed their citizens to effectively devalue the dollar by 70%. It's very interesting. So at the end of the day, it's a lot of things are happening. I know that's hard to keep up with everything, but I want you to all understand that when we focus on things happening around money, around the current monetary system, around even DLT, cryptos, etc., like, why do you think governments are trying to fight for regulations where they can control cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency systems? It's because they see this as the pinnacle core of the future financial system. And this is also why I say, like, we could very well see a cryptocurrency be the global bridge currency and the global reserve currency, but it's not going to work the same way as we do see like a US dollar reserve currency working today, like I said in this article. And it's very interesting to talk about. It's very interesting to have a thought process on this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, up to you all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. It's been Nick. Peace out, guys.